The last breath of hope, the acid winds of Paraxis IV, carved endless patterns into the rusted metal structures that once represented the pinnacle of human expansion. Everett Walsh adjusted his respirator and squinted through protective goggles. At the horizon, where the poisonous yellow haze met the decaying remains of Mining Complex 37. 6 months since the last evacuation ship. 6 months of solitude in Dome Shelter B-19, maintaining oxygen scrubbers and patching radiation leaks. At 35, his dark hair was already streaked with premature gray, his once military posture now permanently hunched from crawling through maintenance tunnels. Today's scavenging mission was critical. The primary water purifier needed a replacement valve, or his carefully maintained sanctuary would become uninhabitable within weeks. The Trans-Solar Corporation had promised to return for remaining personnel, but Everett had stopped believing corporate promises long before the planet's atmosphere turned toxic. He stepped carefully through the debris field, avoiding loose panels that might give way beneath his weight. His modified scanner beeped faintly, indicating salvageable metals nearby. As he approached the collapsed storage facility, something unexpected registered on the device, a faint biological signature. "Impossible," he muttered, tapping the scanner. "Nothing survived in the open here. Not anymore." The reading persisted. Everett drew his cutting tool, approaching cautiously. Behind a twisted bulkhead, partially sheltered from the winds, lay a figure, female, humanoid, but with skin bearing a faint lavender hue that no earthborn human possessed. She was curled into herself, wearing tattered remains of a laboratory-grade containment suit. Her breathing came in shallow gasps, her body trembling. When she sensed his presence, her eyes fluttered open, deep violet irises rimmed with exhaustion. Instead of fear or hope, her expression conveyed resignation. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'll serve any purpose. Just don't leave me to die out here." Everett recognized the implant partially embedded in her neck, a tracking chip with corporate insignia. She was Genform property, a biological asset, likely a hybrid created for the compatibility programs that had sparked ethical controversies throughout settled space. "How long have you been out here?" he asked, crouching beside her. 3 days since the transport crashed," she responded mechanically. "I am still functional." The way she spoke, as if reciting performance metrics, made his stomach turn. Her lavender skin was covered in chemical burns, her fingers raw from exposure. Without hesitation, Everett removed his outer jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "I'm taking you to shelter. Can you walk?" Confusion crossed her features. "You want me to walk?" "If you can't, I'll carry you." When she didn't respond, he carefully lifted her. She weighed less than he expected, her body rigid at first, then gradually relaxing against his chest as they made their way across the wasteland. "I'm Mira," she whispered against his respirator. "Compatibility Index Designation MR4. "Everett," he replied simply. "And out here, you're just Myra." Inside Dome B-19, as the airlock cycled and clean air filled the chamber, Mira looked around with wide eyes at the jury-rigged systems keeping the shelter alive, just like Everett had kept himself alive, through stubborn determination and technical skill. "Rest," he told her, setting her down on his sleeping pallet. "You're safe now." For the first time in months, Everett wasn't alone. For the first time in her existence, Mira wasn't property. Outside, the winds howled their endless song against the dome. Inside, something fragile and unexpected began to take root. Broken trust. 3 days passed before Myra could sit upright without assistance. Everett watched her progress with cautious optimism, recording vital signs on a salvaged medical tablet. The burns on her skin were healing, lavender hue returning to areas that had been bleached gray by chemical exposure. "The nutrient solution is helping," he observed, setting a fresh cup beside her. Your metabolic readings are stabilizing. Myra's fingers curled around the cup, still hesitant in every movement. You waste resources on me. Not waste, Everett corrected, adjusting the thermal regulator. The dome's interior had grown colder as external temperatures dropped with nightfall. Investment, she looked up sharply. You wish return value? I understand. When I am stronger. That's not what I meant, he interrupted, feeling heat rise to his face. I meant keeping you alive is worth the resources. No return expected. Confusion played across her features. Everett had seen that look before the struggle to process concepts outside programmed parameters. During his years in fleet engineering, he'd encountered others like her, organic beings shaped by genetics and conditioning to serve specific functions. Why did they leave you here? She asked suddenly. Everett's hands stilled on the console. I chose to stay? That is not logical. No, he agreed with a half-smile. It wasn't. That night, while Mira slept, Everett examined her tracking implant with microtools and a magnifying visor. The jamming field he'd established masked its signal temporarily, but the device was designed with fail-safes. If it went offline too long, it would trigger a distress pulse powerful enough to cut through his countermeasures. Damn corporations, he muttered, setting down his tools. They designed us to be recoverable assets. Mira's voice startled him. She was watching him, eyes reflecting the dim blue emergency lights. The implant connects to my nervous system. Removal without proper equipment would likely cause permanent damage. Everett frowned. How much do you know about its design? I was awake during installation. Her voice remained eerily calm. They believed pain response data would be useful. For calibration. The clinical way she described her torture made Everett's hands clench into fists. I can disable it without removal. It'll take time, but why would you help me? She interrupted. I have no value to you. Value isn't something people have to earn, Myra. She sat up slowly, clutching his jacket around her shoulders like armor. I was created to bear offspring for colonization programs. Genetically engineered for compatibility with human males, while preserving adaptive traits for harsh environments. Her voice trembled slightly. When the protests started, when the ethics committees began investigations, they loaded us onto transport ships. We weren't being evacuated. We were being disposed of. Everett moved closer, careful to maintain distance that wouldn't frighten her. You're not property here, not cargo. Not a function. Myra's fingers traced the outline of the implant beneath her skin. If they detect me, they won't, Everett promised. And if anyone comes looking, they'll have to get through me first. For the first time since he'd found her, Myra's expression softened. I don't understand you, Everett Walsh. He smiled. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start work on that implant. As she closed her eyes, Everett returned to the monitoring station, checking perimeter sensors with renewed vigilance. He hadn't fought to survive this long, just to lose the first person who'd given him a reason beyond mere existence. The approaching storm, hold still, Everett murmured, manipulating the microtool beneath Myra's skin. Almost there. 2 weeks of careful work had transformed their relationship. Each delicate procedure to disable her tracking implant required absolute trust, his hands steady against her throat, her body motionless despite discomfort. There, he whispered as the final connection severed. The implant's light faded to black. It's done. Myra exhaled slowly, fingers reaching up to touch the now dormant device. I can't feel it broadcasting anymore. It's not, Everett confirmed, checking the scanner. Your genetic signature is still encoded, but the transmission capability is dead. She smiled a real smile that reached her eyes, transforming her face into something luminous. Everett found himself staring longer than necessary, suddenly aware of how close they sat, how the dome's filtered light caught the subtle variations in her lavender skin. "Thank you," she said simply. The moment stretched between them until the perimeter alarm shattered it. A high-pitched wail that sent them both jumping to their feet. "Motion detection," Everett explained, rushing to the console. "Northwest quadrant, just beyond the acid flats." Myra's expression hardened. "They've found me." Everett studied the readout, brow furrowed. "It's not necessarily corporate. Could be scavengers, even wildlife, though that's unlikely." He activated the external cameras, their grainy footage showing only swirling dust and distant rock formations. "We should prepare," Myra insisted, already gathering emergency supplies into a pack. Her movements were efficient now. Strength returned to limbs once weak from exposure. Everett watched her with a mixture of admiration and concern. In just 2 weeks, she'd learned the dome's systems, memorized evacuation protocols, even assisted with repairs to the oxygen recyclers. She'd adapted, as she was designed to do, but with a fierce independence her creators never intended. "If we need to run," he said carefully, "there's an auxiliary shelter in the eastern ridges. Less comfortable, but better hidden." Myra nodded, continuing her preparations. When she reached for the weapon rack, Everett caught her wrist gently. "Let's not assume the worst yet." Her eyes met his, vulnerability piercing through determination. "I can't go back, Everett. I would rather die. Out there." Her free hand gestured toward the toxic wasteland beyond their sanctuary. "Nobody's taking you anywhere," he promised, his thumb unconsciously stroking the inside of her wrist, or her pulse beat rapidly. The alarm silenced suddenly. Proximity triggers reset. Whatever had caused the alert had either retreated or disappeared into the shifting landscape. Mira's tension remained, her body coiled like a spring. That night, neither slept soundly. Everett maintained watch at the monitoring station, scanning frequencies for communication signals. Mira lay on her pallet, eyes open, listening to the dome's familiar creaks as thermal contractions stressed its structure. "Everett," she called softly across the darkened space. "Will you come here?" He hesitated only briefly before crossing to her side, settling beside her pallet. She reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers with deliberate care. "I've never chosen anything before," she whispered. "My genetics, my purpose, my location all decided by others. But I choose to be here with you." Everett felt something shift in his chest, a warmth spreading outward from where their hands connected. "I choose you too," he replied, voice rough with emotion. When the storm winds rose outside, howling against the dome's shields, they faced them together, finding in each other's presence a shelter more significant than the physical structure. Protecting them from the hostile world, sacrifices made, the transport appeared on the horizon at dawn, a sleek black silhouette cutting through the toxic haze. Everett spotted it from the observation port, his body tensing as he recognized the corporate insignia emblazoned on its hull. "Recovery unit," he told Myra, who appeared beside him instantly. "Heavy class retrieval vehicle, probably automated, with minimal human crew." Her face paled to a lighter shade of lavender. "How did they find me?" "Could be routine sweep," Everett reasoned, though he didn't believe it. "Or another implant we missed." Myra's hand went reflexively to her abdomen. "The reproductive tracker," she whispered. "Deep tissue implementation." I'd forgotten. The dome's communication system crackled to life, an authoritative voice filling the space. "Attention occupant of shelter, B-19. We have detected corporate property within your facility. Surrender the genetic asset immediately. For retrieval or face extraction protocols." Everett moved swiftly to the console, activating the dome's exterior defenses' rudimentary shields he'd modified from mining equipment, capable of generating localized electrical disruption. "Myra, gather only what we need. Emergency packs, water purifiers, the portable oxygen unit." She nodded, already in motion. The eastern shelter? No, Everett replied, studying the transport's approach vector. They'll scan for secondary habitats. We need something they wouldn't expect. He pulled up old survey maps on the console. There's an abandoned mining crawler 2 clicks south. Partial shielding, mobile capabilities if we can get it running. The external cameras showed the transport. Deploying a smaller craft a hunter-seeker drone, programmed for asset recovery. They'll breach within 15 minutes, Everett calculated, loading a makeshift pulse weapon he'd constructed during sleepless nights. We leave through the maintenance tunnel. As they prepared to flee, Mira suddenly gripped his arm. If they capture me, they'll terminate the reproductive programming. It's standard procedure for recovered assets. Her eyes held his with fierce intensity. I would lose what makes me ... me. Everett understood what she couldn't articulate, that despite her origins as a designed being, she had become more than her programming. The spark of selfhood that had developed in freedom was worth protecting at all costs. They won't take you, he promised. When the hunter-seeker breached the dome's outer airlock, they were already halfway through the maintenance tunnel, rebreathers secured over their faces. The tunnel opened into a ravine scored by acid winds, visibility reduced to mere meters. They ran together, Everett leading with a scanner, Mira following close behind. When the recovery unit spotted them and accelerated in pursuit, Everett made a split-second decision. Keep going, he told Mira, pressing the scanner into her hands. I'll draw them off. Her eyes widened in panic. No, trust me, he insisted. The crawler is just beyond that ridge. Get it operational. Before she could protest further, he kissed her a brief, fierce connection that communicated everything. Words couldn't. Then he turned back, raising his pulse weapon toward the approaching hunters. Mira ran, tears blurring her vision, the echo of Everett's covering fire spurring her forward. She would not waste his sacrifice. Beyond the wasteland, Mira worked frantically within the abandoned crawler, fingers flying across ancient control panels. The vehicle's systems responded sluggishly, power cells depleted from years of disuse. Through the viewport, dust clouds obscured the direction she'd left Everett, occasional flashes of energy weapons illuminating the haze. Come on, she urged the machine, rerouting auxiliary power to the engine core. The crawler shuddered to life just as a figure appeared through the swirling. Toxins stumbling toward her. Myra's heart leapt to her throat as she recognized Everett, his protective gear torn, blood seeping through his jacket sleeve. She rushed to the crawler's hatch, helping him inside. You're injured. Superficial, he gasped, collapsing against the bulkhead as she sealed the hatch. Did you get it working? Yes, she confirmed, returning to the controls. Where do we go? Everett managed a pained smile. Up. The mining crawler groaned in protest as Mira engaged its massive treads, the vehicle lurching forward across the ravaged landscape. Behind them, recovery units regrouped, preparing for pursuit. Corporate directive requires intact recovery, Everett explained, applying pressure to his wound. They won't risk destroying us if they think you're still valuable. Mira navigated toward the mountain ridge, where ancient mining tunnels burrowed deep into the planet's crust. What did you mean by up? There's something I never told you, Everett admitted, pain evident in his voice. I stayed behind when the evacuation ships left, yes, but not just because I'm stubborn. He gestured toward a pocket in his pack. Coordinates to the emergency shuttle. Myra's hands trembled as she retrieved the data chip. Away off-world? All this time? It wasn't ready, he explained. Needed. Parts, fuel cells. I've been collecting, preparing. His eyes met hers. Never had a reason to rush until now. The crawler shuddered as it climbed steeper terrain, recovery units falling behind as the incline increased. Myra followed Everett's directions, guiding them through a hidden passage that opened into a massive cavern. There, nestled among mining equipment and supply crates, sat a small shuttle, unimpressive but intact. "It won't win beauty contests," Everett said, "but it'll break atmosphere." They worked together through the night, transferring supplies, completing final preparations. When the recovery units breached the outer cavern, the shuttle's engines were already warming. As Mira initiated launch sequence, Everett took her hand. "Where will we go?" "The outer colonies," she suggested, "where corporate jurisdiction is limited. We could disappear together," he added, squeezing her fingers. The shuttle rose shakily, straining against gravity, then burst through the cavern's concealed roof into the toxic sky above. Recovery units fired ineffectually as the small craft accelerated upward, breaking through clouds turned yellow by pollution. Inside the cockpit, as Paraxis 4 shrank beneath them, Mira leaned against Everett's shoulder, their bodies fitting together, as if designed for this purpose. "I was created to ensure survival," she whispered. "Just not my own." "That changes now," Everett replied, his arm encircling her waist. "Everything you are from this point forward is your choice alone." The shuttle broke atmosphere, stars appearing in endless brilliance around them. Mira had been engineered to adapt to harsh environments, to ensure humanity's continuation on unforgiving worlds. Everett had been trained to maintain systems, to keep things functioning when all else failed. Together, they faced the vastness of space, no longer abandoned, no longer alone. In each other, they had found what neither thought possible on a dying world, a future worth fighting for, a connection that transcended design. As the ship's navigation system plotted a course to distant colonies, Mira and Everett held each other close, their breaths synchronizing in the quiet of the cockpit. Behind them, Paraxis IV receded into darkness. Ahead, countless stars offered new beginnings. Whatever came next would be their choice together.